There's no second best. By becoming rich. Take all your money, buy Bitcoin. I say when we sell.
Wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. So, today is Wednesday. It's the 24th of July. Just zoom in here onto Ethereum. And here's ETH after the ETF launch. So, kind of in line with what I said yesterday, that it's in an area where there isn't really any strong high time frame bullish or bearish levels. The proper resistance is well above us, the proper support is well below us, and we had the launch and it's pretty much perfectly priced in. Good example of that happening yesterday. And the flows, broadly negative, I believe, because of Grayscale. Technically, it shows up as positive, but I think a lot of this is just your day one flow, and I'd be more interested to see what happens today. So it's 106 positive, that's good, 106 million positive, but I need to see what happens today, because I expect more of this from Grayscale. Grayscale has 10 billion, 9.5 billion now, of ETH in total. And what's interesting to me then is how much of that's actually going to flow out, and when is it going to flow out by? If you look at it from the perspective of, that's 5% of the entire ETH supply gone from Grayscale already, and the market seems to have absorbed it pretty well. So that's probably quite a good sign. And I think a lot of what you see here mirrors what happened with Bitcoin. If you combine BlackRock and Bitwise here, even just BlackRock, Fidelity, Bitwise, it looks like a lot of this has just been taken off Grayscale and into these trusts here. Whether it's actually happened like that, you've 260 plus 200, that's 460 plus 70 is what, 530? And you have 484 going out. So, within 50 million or so, they're basically identical. Ironically, 21 shares Van Eck, Invesco, Franklin, like these are probably more real flows, if that makes sense. Whereas this is, what BlackRock and Fidelity and Bitwise know, what they would have had is buyers lined up already, waiting to get in on day one. Maybe some people swapping from Bitcoin ETFs over to ETH ETFs on day one. And the true test of organic demand does not come on day one, right? You want to see week one, month one, and the first quarter, right? You want to see the end of the first week, end of the first month, end of the first quarter. So we'll see. I suspect there'll be more outflows from Grayscale, and it'll be interesting to see after the day one what does demand look like on the other side. But positive is positive. Can't complain for that start. As for BTC yesterday, outflow day, right? That was something that I was expecting as a possibility. And you can look at this a couple of ways. I would look at this and say, if this persists, it tells you that there is not excess demand for Ethereum, right? There are no new people who want to buy Ethereum, which makes sense, right? Who's going to come in and only want to buy an Ethereum ETF? Doesn't really make sense. So what this looks a bit like so far, at least we've only one day, but so far, is that plenty of people who wanted to get some ETH exposure, but it seems like they've sold off Bitcoin exposure for that. Is it a surprise, or is it a coincidence, I should say, that our first outflow day on BTC in over a month is the same day that we have ETH ETF launch? I think that's probably not a coincidence. So anyway, where are we at? ETH just holding up, consolidating nicely. All of this talk, all this stuff I said yesterday, right? All of this talk from people about how ETH is fucking gonna absolutely moon or absolutely nuke was never gonna happen, because it wasn't overextended. Like we said, if you go back and see yesterday's video, it wasn't like this. If it was significantly oversold or significantly overbought, so if it's overbought or oversold and you had the launch, yeah, you'd see a big move back towards the middle. You'd have a big dump or a big pump. We're not there. We're just consolidating at the midpoint and above the 50 EMA. Now, be mindful of price consolidating above that midpoint when there is a gap below. It can just be setting up for a drop back down. So it's not something that you would be aping in massively long bullish either. But, you know, better than the horror show many people thought there would have been tomorrow or yesterday. As for BTC has been above its 50 EMA for a while, consolidating nicely, holding up. I think these couple of red days, what you're looking at here now, as I've said for a while, is does Bitcoin just continue to stay in this area, right? For all the talks of pullbacks over the last couple of days that I've seen online, Bitcoin has done exactly what you want it to do, which is not really sell off much. 68 down to 66, just 65 and a half. If it just bounces back up to 67 and spends some time between 67 and 65, that's probably setting up continuation. I would say maybe the daily bands are going to catch up. And if it comes and consolidates on those bands over the next few days, I think going into next week or maybe next month, maybe we get past the monthly open, sets up for a move higher. We have an options level, so it's Wednesday now and we're getting closer and closer to the weekend, to Friday I should say, where we have an OPEX for BTC, which is July 26th, right? Today's 24th. Yeah. And you have 69, 68, and 67 as the big levels. But 67 has the highest call volume there, and 66 has a decent amount right below it. So every chance that we might just see some ping-ponging around between that, somewhere between 66 and 68, and maybe on Friday over here, a couple of days from now, we might close in between that before price makes any kind of move. We've had a really nice move up off the lows, and a lengthy consolidation is optimal here, is the best thing. So the impulse really ended here. We had the move up, strong pump, couple of days consolidation, another strong pump. These 2 days, even though they were green, I wouldn't call them strong trending days. They were more like moving into a consolidation and then a pullback. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're on day 5 now of a consolidation. And if Bitcoin is able to hold it up, especially if it attempts to go lower, it'll probably try to go below 65 if the bands hold it and we stay up. I think that's setting up probably quite a good structure for higher prices. Of course, you got Trump speaking at the conference on Saturday. That'll likely cause some short-term volatility. What I would like to see for that would be that the market goes sideways, and then when you see that Saturday when he talks, that might be where you see like a whipsaw candle. Probably kind of hard to see that. Get a fresh chart and zoom in on it. If you see that with Trump and he speaks on Saturday, what I would like to see is a nice consolidation basically within the high of this one to the low of yesterday, with sweeps both sides, right? Sweeps both sides are fine as long as it stays broadly within this consolidation before breaking out. And so if you're looking at Trump talking on Saturday, which is here, I would say there's a decent chance we don't see any major volatility until then. Maybe try to go lower a bit, holding up. But here you might see, some volatility in both directions. And if it goes back to consolidation and starts to drift like that, that's when you're going to see a bigger breakout. That would be the ideal continuation for BTC, which would be none of this gets filled. It could come down here on a wick, but it broadly stays in a sort of drifting upwards move like that. And then eventually it forms some kind of sideways. If you're looking at like a box, if it's going to form a box, it's only just starting. And typically what you will see is both sides getting tested, and then it's going to spend more time up at the top part and push and break out. Not dissimilar to something like this. If you're going to have one of these breakouts that holds, you're going to see price pushing and rejecting a couple of times, but failing to go back lower, and then just squeezing. That's telling you that the demand is outstripping the supply and we are going to go higher. BTC certainly doesn't show any real desire to go lower yet at this point, which is good. At least not significantly lower, which can set up pretty well. Now today is, we do have, I think GDP's today, right? Or is it tomorrow? It's today, I'm almost certain. It is, no, it's tomorrow. Okay, so the biggest data of the week will be GDP tomorrow, followed by PC on Friday. Today we have not much. Manufacturing PMIs might be a bit. Manufacturing PMIs, you'll see. I'll show you now in a second what they tend to do to the market. And services PMI. But both of those basically are a measure of the manufacturing industry and the services industry. So it's looking at it from the producer side. And it's a measure of economic health. So June 21st, May 23rd, April 23rd. I'll just quickly look at because when you see these data days, they're not all created equal. Obviously, everyone knows about CPI and how we get these big moves around this CPI inflation print. But not every data day is created equal. June 21st, May 23rd. So June 21st, May 23rd, and April 23rd. I'll just look at the last three. There we go. And we'll zoom in. So is it the 12:30 normal time? No, 1:45 p.m. Okay. Which is June 21st. One's probably over here. Yeah. So this was the volatility you saw around it here that day. So, just maybe some whipsaw within a tight range. No major moves like you see. I mean, you compare that to CPI, which was a couple of weeks before it. I think that was there's CPI, right? So you see the difference of the CPI move on BTC and the services and manufacturing PMIs. But we'll go back again, look at another one. We had the 23rd of May coming into 1 p.m. We actually did have quite a big move that day, which I think was probably a combination of those PMIs plus the preceding move that we'd had. But there you go. It was a decent move there for anyone trading it. And on Trade of the Day, I'll break down the same logic as we looked at a couple of months ago or last month. No, this month with CPI. I know you like that mini lesson I did. We'll zoom in and look at that as well. And this was Tuesday, 23rd of April. So it would have been this one here. So you had a spike up and then a move down. And we'll look at some directional moves that can come off that. So zooming out, summarizing how the top three are looking. Bitcoin, good. Continuing to consolidate up here, all good. Falling back below the bands and below 64, not great. ETH, that's not ETH. Let me go here. There we go. Bitcoin, ETH. ETH again, consolidation up here is good. Will there be enough demand to outstrip supply, or will the grayscale selling overwhelm in the short term and push us lower? Solana, without any of those outflows, right, with no negative flows to worry about, has actually come back and retested the old value area high, right? So it's broken out and is currently holding. Now this current price action for Sol wouldn't fill me with confidence, because quite often when you have this move up, you see this daily, Sunday pumped up, within 2 days retrace the whole thing. So you want to see Solana be able to almost fully retrace that again to show that it's actually consolidating up here. And then the next breakout is one to buy, because I think that next breakout, if it does, probably goes to new yearly high. If not, quite often what happens here is it falls back into a support, but it hasn't shown strength. And if it just keeps rolling over, it'll eventually fall back inside. A little bit like this. Pumped up, 2 days later fell back, and then it was unable to hold. And once it got back inside the value area, down it goes to the value area low. So you want to see Solana avoiding a repeat of that. Be mindful, this is a lower high currently. So if you're looking at the 4 times, sellers come in here, sellers come in again earlier, sellers come in again earlier, and sellers have come in again, yet again, earlier. And be mindful of that, because what you do have is like a flat bottom where the support is pretty much at the same place, and yet the bounces are getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So that leaves you with this sort of pattern, which is generally not a good one. Yeah, that's generally something that actually goes lower. So Sol still has work to do, despite looking good, and people starting to get a bit high on it again. I would be cautious and let the next few days of consolidation play out. And overall, that's it. Some alts looking decent, some meme coins. I noticed Apu, got an alert on Apu that it's back above this resistance line that I mentioned, that you want to see it flipping. So I drew this out probably on last week's altcoin requests. You just want to see it consolidate and hold above this 0.0078, right? So I'd like to see maybe it retest this daily demand area, this daily order block that it had. And if it's able to hold up and retest in there but stay above, and is able to show that for maybe a week or two, that would be of interest. Because obviously the alternative is it comes all the way back down for more consolidation, which is also fine, right? It might just have to come back down, retest the lows, and then break out later on. A lot of times you look at this and think, oh, this is the time for a breakout, but it can often just be the first push and the breakout's actually still a little bit away. This is a low. If there's a high up here, it could come back, form a higher low, higher high, higher low, and then break out later on. So moving in the right direction. Could be some trades to set up there later on. I'd say that's one I'll keep on my radar. That's it. GM. 2 streams today. Ask Michael and Wipeout Wednesday. GM.